Imagine an object so beautiful and so valuable that merely claiming it guarantees tragedy for anyone in your bloodline. This is the Kohinoor. It remains one of the most famous gemstones in history, but its reputation has little to do with its sparkle. It sits at a strange crossroads, an object representing the absolute peak of material wealth, yet it inspires a level of fear that has lasted for generations. To own it was to possess the ultimate prize, but history suggests that the price of the Kohinoor was almost always paid in blood. Its timeline stretches back centuries, passing through the treasuries of ancient kings, emperors, and eventually the British royal family. But look closer at the transitions. Nearly every ruler who held the stone eventually faced a violent downfall, the sudden collapse of their empire, or an early death. Over time, these weren't seen as separate events. A narrative took hold that the stone itself was a predator, actively destroying those who tried to master it. The sheer volume of these tragedies transformed the Kohinoor from a piece of jewelry into something else, a malicious presence in the global imagination. Historians see a different pattern. When we look at the facts, there is no evidence that a supernatural force was deciding the fate of these rulers. Take a look at the political landscape of India in the 18th century. This was a world of shifting borders and constant, fragmented power struggles. The kings who owned the diamond were already locked in existential fights for survival, surrounded by rivals who wanted their land and their throne. These bloody overthrows were the standard business of the era. They occurred with or without the diamond's presence in the palace. When we lay out the timeline, the violence precedes the ownership. The Kohinoor didn't drive the conflict. It was simply a recurring passenger in a cycle of warfare that would have played out the same way on its own. Instead of magic, consider the math of greed. Possessing an object of this magnitude immediately paints a target on the owner's back. Defending such a high-profile prize required immense physical force and a level of paranoia that few rulers could maintain forever. The empires fighting over the stone were massive. When we see the scale of the wealth at risk in these palaces, we see why the stakes for conquest were so absolute. The stone only ever moved when an empire fell. It became the ultimate spoil of war, passed exclusively through the hands of the victors. In a landscape where power is taken by force, the most valuable object in the room is always the most dangerous to hold. The curse is simply the predictable outcome of being the most wanted prize in a world of violent competition. Even with the historical logic in front of us, the pattern is hard to ignore. The history of the Kohinoor remains deeply compelling. Why do we still choose to believe in a curse, even when the political reasons for the violence are so clear? We tend to treat certain objects as vessels. They absorb the stories, the trauma, and the blood of the empires that fought over them. The Kohinoor acts as a psychological sponge. It allows us to project the brutal realities of empire building onto a single stone, giving a face to the chaos of history. The myth survives because it is emotionally easier to fear a cursed diamond than to face our own capacity for unrestrained greed. You're watching Untold Indian Stories, where we explore the mysteries that force us to look closer at the world around us. If you find these historical deep dives fascinating, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Ultimately, we have to decide if we are looking at a long string of coincidences or a narrative we've spent centuries building. If the curse is just a story, why does the weight of that history still feel so tangibly real when you stand in front of it? A gemstone can't carry a grudge, but as long as we choose to connect these tragedies